everyone, I want to talk to you today about my sandwich bread and how to make it. Today I'm making 3 times the normal recipe, but I'm not going to talk about the amounts, I'm just going to talk about the process. So usually what I do is I have all my ingredients out. That's my mise en place, getting all ready for all my ingredients ready. In this bowl I have my bread flour, salt, and sugar, and I mix that up so that's ready to go. Let's talk about the wet ingredients. I use a bowl like this to put my eggs in, to bring the eggs to room temperature quickly. The water is usually quite warm, and I let that sit in the shell, the eggs in the shell, about 5 minutes, and then I measure it into the big bowl. And when I measured it, when I pick the eggs, I look for eggs that are a little bit bigger, and then I take out, for 3 breads, I'll take out about 12 grams of egg that I beat with a fork, and then I add a little milk. This is my egg wash, so I don't have to worry about egg wash later. Now for the egg whites, I buy that already prepared, and same kind of thing. I measure my egg whites in a jar, and then I put that in some warm water, and it helps it come to room temperature. What's really important is that the temperature of the ingredients are around 80 to 90 degrees when you get started. You just don't want it too hot and you don't want it too cold. Next is my butter and milk, and I took the butter and I cut into some small pieces. I added about half of the milk and I heated that up. Now that's probably going to be too hot, so you don't want to be adding that to your eggs, because the eggs can cook and the yeast, and you've got to be really careful. So what I did was, once it was melted, I added the other half of the milk, and that then tempers it and brings the temperature sort of right in the middle. The next thing I have to do is I have to get my water ready. So what I'll do is I'm going to measure my water, I'm going to add my yeast, and I'm going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. Not just measure the water, but I'm also going to measure the temperature with my thermometer. And I want that temperature to be between 95 and 100 degrees. What you're really looking for when you've measured the water, you've taken the temperature, added the yeast, given it a little stir, you want it to be frothy and have like this nice kind of yeasty smell. If it doesn't froth up, it could have been a problem with the temperature of the water. I've done it before where I used something hot and by accident I stirred it and I killed the yeast. I knew, because it was just didn't have any bubbles. So once I have all of that ready to go, once that yeast is ready, the butter and milk are at the right temperature, I'm going to throw it all in the bowl and start making bread. That's it, pretty easy. Next, I want to show you how to get your yeast ready. So I've measured out my water, and next thing I want to do is I want to take the temperature. So this is showing 99.3. It's just like a little bit of a light fever. And the water's ready. I'm going to tare the scale, that means put it to 0, and then I want to add 20 grams, and I do this a lot so I don't use the spoon, 20 grams, because I am doing 3 times the recipe. And I want to be really careful at the end, going nice and slowly. And then next, I'm going to take my spoon, and I'm going to stir this up. And let that sit for 10 minutes, and then in 10 minutes it should be nice and frothy. We'll take a look after the 10 minutes. So let's take a look at that yeast. That is perfect. So you can see it's frothy. If you smell it, it smells yeasty, and that's going to be ready to go in. But let's check the temperature of the butter and milk combination, because we really want to make sure that it's not too hot. Oh, and it's perfect. It's at 99 degrees, even 100 is fine, because when we mix it in with the egg that's in here, it will be tempered. So I'm going to, this is just egg and the egg white, and I'm going to add the butter and the milk now, and I'm just going to give it a little stir as I'm adding it. I would say the warmest that you'd want this to be would be maybe 110. Anything above that possibly could make it a little too hot. So I'm adding, I'm stirring, I'm adding. Now here's something else that some people do. They might just put this in the sink. I take my rubber spatula, and watch how much I'm going to get. It's probably a good 5 to 10 grams extra. So don't forget about that bit. All right, So we've got all the butter and the milk. I'm going to set that aside. And now I'm going to take my yeast mixture and go ahead and add that. A little stir. And again, take that spatula and get all the bits. We don't need the thermometer anymore. We've done all of our checking of temperatures. Everything is going to be about, maybe about 90 degrees-ish, maybe 95. That's a good temperature for bread. For our dry ingredients, we can start adding about half of that now to this big bowl. And then I'm going to bring you over to the mixer and I'm going to show you how I add the rest. If you add all of the dry ingredients at once, sometimes what happens is when the mixer starts, the flour will start flying around. So that's why I try to just add about half at a time. All right, let's go take a look at the mixing process. Okay, let's get our mixing bowl on our mixer. Put our dough hook on, and then bring that up. And we're going to start it. And then I'm going to add the rest of this flour here about over the course of a minute, and then we're going to let it go for 5 minutes. I'll be right back. After about a minute, so let's let it go for 5 more minutes, and if we have to, we'll add some white rice flour if it's too sticky. Let's do a couple of little tips. If it's a little sticky, just go ahead and just add a little bit of flour to that. It's white rice flour, it's super fine. And I did raise the speed a little bit. I'm going to put it back down. Don't save your spatula because we might need to do some scraping. Alright, we've got about 2 more minutes and then we'll check it out. I use the white rice flour. I use like super fine white rice flour for my touching fingers. I really like it. So now we're going to check it. And I don't know if you can tell, but it looks pretty sticky to me. See how it's like sticking to my glove? That would be sticking to your finger. So at this point, this is, I keep my rice flour in a little jar like this. I'm just going to add a few more tablespoons and mix that up, and then we can roll it on the counter. Next, we're going to get our dough ready to go into the pan. So when I do make more than one, I make sure that they're evenly distributed. And I put a little bit of that superfine white rice flour on a very clean counter. And then I'm going to knead it like the old days. And you can come in a little closer and a little bit more flour. And you can see how it's sort of sticky, but it's not sticking to my gloves. It wouldn't be sticking to your hands. So once it looks like that, now take a little more of that flour, just a tiny bit, and I'm going to press it out to what I call like almost as big as a little bit smaller than a piece of paper. So a piece of paper in the US is 8.5 inches by 11 inches. This is probably about 6 going this way and maybe 10 going that way. And I have my pan and my parchment ready to go. I'm going to have that there, sort of fit it into the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to roll away from me. Then I'm going to bring the sides in and I'm going to roll it up. And that, my friends, is a perfect sandwich bread. This comes over here. As I put it into the pan, use your hand, pan it down, and press that parchment so that it gets into the corners. And then you're going to just sort of position it so it looks like that. And then you're going to take your knife about maybe this far down and go straight across. And we're going to do that 2 more times with the other dough that I have. And then it's going to have some plastic over it, and it's going to rise in my nice warm kitchen for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. But after 45 minutes of rising, that's when the oven goes on. So let's check back before it goes in the oven. So there are my breads in the kitchen underneath the stove light, and they'll take about an hour and 15 minutes to rise. Okay, so now we're ready to add our egg wash, and you can see the bread looks beautiful. It's been rising about hour and 15 minutes. So just take that egg wash that we set aside earlier, it's just egg and milk, and brush it on your bread. So I'm going to do that with all 3 of these and pop them in the oven, and in about 25 minutes we're going to turn them around. So we'll check back. Thanks. So the timer just go off. Let's take a peek. Oh yeah, we're going to give those a little turnaround. So the timer just went off. Oh my gosh, those look so perfect. So I'm going to take them out of the oven, let them sit for about 10 minutes, and then we'll take them out of the pan. All right, so the last step is we're going to move our breads out of the pan onto a wire rack. So I usually just take the sides and I leave it in the paper, it's fine. And then this one I'm going to turn sideways. And this I'm going to turn sideways. I'm going to open that up a little bit. And it usually takes at least a couple hours. Sometimes I'll even let them sit out overnight just to cool off. And then it's ready to eat. Oh my gosh. Well, it'll probably be ready in about an hour or two, but it smells delicious. One of the many things that I love about this bread, I also love that there's no gum. There's no xanthan gum or guar gum, and all the flour is non-GMO. So I hope you will try the recipe.